There's this interesting saying that I've heard, and I don't know exactly how it goes, but it's something like, never meet your heroes. And I have a little bit of an understanding why some people may say that, and I could be completely wrong. But the way that I'm understanding it now for me, so look, if I don't understand it the way that it's commonly used, I'm saying right now that I may not, because I haven't looked into it and I haven't cared to. But I've come to an understanding of something that I feel that it means that if you meet your heroes, you'll find out that they're not actually heroes. That the people that you look up to sometimes, especially from a distance, and especially in the world of the internet and what have become known as parasocial relationships, meaning that, as some people say online, that when you consume someone's content so much, you begin to know, like, and trust them because there's so much in your experience, right? Which is something that I understand a lot of, because I can also link it to the idea of you become the sum total of the 5 to 7 people you spend most of your time with. And that, of course, includes these parasocial relationships, because I know for a fact, for myself and my personal experience, that the more that I listen to certain people, like sometimes I'll binge listen to Gary Vaynerchuk, or then it'll be Neil deGrasse Tyson, or somebody else, or even I'll watch a bunch of videos that I know are just complete AI slop because they're modeled after authors or speakers or teachers who have long died, and their copyrights have gone out, so they program the AI with that, and I just find it interesting. And so I know about myself something that I've known for a long time, that I am influenced by, and it can change my behavior and my thinking by the things that I constantly immerse myself into. And so not meeting your heroes could mean that you might find out that all the stuff that people are saying on the surface is in fact not true. And I am not lost on the understanding that many people already know this, and also are not surprised by the amount of celebrities and political figures who have been connected to the very heinous criminal Jeffrey Epstein, because of what he's been involved in, and the people who've come out to have had very questionable, if not quite damning, contact with him after he was convicted of what he was convicted of. And so, and it goes on and on and on, and people keep being revealed. And we know that it's a crap show with the certain things being redacted and not being released yet, and you wonder why, because it could be very disruptive. There's a lot of people in positions of power and other positions of influence that, when we come to understand what they're really up to behind closed doors, sometimes a lot of people will feel lost and directionless. And the next thing I'm going to say, a lot of people might hear it and say, oh, here he goes again with this. But something, and I may not have said this directly about it before, but something similar happened to me, but not in the same way. But I understand what happens when people lose a direction. So the woman I loved enormously, we were living in China together, and she went to New York to visit her family. And the day that I was going to buy her a ticket to come home, she died. And so I got stuck in, and this was in October 24th of 2019, and I got stuck in China because COVID happened right after that, and a lot of things, and I was in the middle of changing my work situation, and so a lot of things were going on, and so much of my future I had imagined being with her. So when she was gone, it was almost like there was no tension pulling me towards it. It was almost like if you took a rubber band and you put it around, like, let's use a really exaggerated example so you can really understand what I mean. Like, imagine a bungee cord, right? But instead of, jumping from some high place and springing from it, imagine there's a very sturdy pole sticking out of the ground, and one end of the bungee cord is attached to it, and the other one part of the bungee cord is attached around your waist or a harness that you're wearing and to the front of you, and you walk away like you're playing tug of war with the pole. The pole's not going anywhere. But you keep on walking back, and the further you go back, of course, the more tension there is. So that if you were to stop pushing yourself backward, like let's say if you jumped up in the air and let go, or let's say if you jumped on top of a skateboard or something, the tension would pull you back towards that pole, right? So the pole is like these various different future events in this future life that I saw with Flor, Elizabeth Carrasco. And when she died, it was as if that cord had gotten cut and I fell on my ass. And without the fact that I have various disciplines that I stick to, I would have been completely lost. But in that respect, I lost my direction. There was nothing that I was yearning and being pulled towards, because I felt like my experience was, wow, this is a really amazing person to share my life with. So I say this all to help you understand that I have an experience that I understand to a certain degree what happens when you look up to someone, or you're looking to authority figures or other people for certain direction, and then it suddenly goes away, which is one of the reasons why some conspiracy theorists will tell you that, a lot of people are losing their hold on, religion and spirituality, so it's being replaced with aliens. And, one of the things that's been said that if aliens were to come to Earth, then a whole bunch of people would commit suicide or whatever, because it would completely disrupt their long-held belief systems. That if you suddenly took away religion or exposed that it was all a fraud or something like that, that it would just completely disrupt people. And this is true. And it's true on many different levels. It doesn't matter if it's religion or any other type of authority or anything outside of yourself or externally that you look towards. If that gets taken away, it can be very disruptive. And I know I went into a lot and some deeply personal things to explain that, but I feel like it's very necessary in understanding this idea about not meeting your heroes. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because I also recently was exposed to a lot of this stuff that I've been following for years in the personal development, self-help, life coaching space, and got really tangled into it and have been for a long time. Ever since I got out of high school, but even before that I was reading books, but I started reading all of the, like all the prosperity gospel type of books, and people like, Napoleon Hill and Robert Kiyosaki, Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And there are a lot of things coming out about various different people, including those two I just mentioned, about questionable, methods or goals or paths or things that they had going on behind the scenes. And meanwhile, people make mistakes. I mean, I'm not perfect. I used to be a crazy street fighter, and, I've gotten myself in trouble in school and been suspended and stuff like that. But there are a lot of things, though. I mean things that are worse than that, but that some of these people supposedly are involved in, or just more specifically that they have intentionally been deceiving people under the guise of the message that they're sharing. That's the big difference. So there are people who make mistakes in their lives, who've been arrested, who have been in psychiatric institutions, who, were on drugs and whatnot. but it was a part of their life that they really, actually, seriously got out of, and they are sharing information that's helpful to people, and they're doing it honestly, truthfully, transparently, and all of that, right? But what the difference is that there are a lot of people out there, these so-called heroes, that they are spreading messages and saying things simply because they know it's going to make them money, not because they know it's going to help other people. And that's really the major point of all this. And a lot of this is coming out, so much of it, about the people that we pay attention to online. And what I've found to be very interesting, and actually is something that is reliable, is really, I know some people might think this is a little woo-woo, but really how it feels to you. Because a lot of the people that it's come out have had like some really terrible ties, like to the previously mentioned Jeffrey Epstein. When I never followed them, because whenever I looked at their materials or saw them speak or just got a glimpse of them, I didn't necessarily think, oh, this is a terrible person who's involved in like trafficking or something like that, human trafficking or something like that, but just that I don't feel like there's anything there for me. And so examples are like Deepak Chopra, who just never has done anything for me. Like I just could never get into anything. Or a lot of people. There's so many of them. And of course he's connected to Epstein and has some questionable messages and so on and so forth. And so what I'm saying is that your intuition, how do you feel? If certain things aren't vibing with you, if it's just not connecting, you know, it's probably a good idea to figure out. And there's a fine line to walk, all right? You know, sometimes you might just actually be lazy or a procrastinator or not have very good habits, but that's for you to really figure out and to sensibly be aware of. And it's not an easy thing to do. It's not like it's not magic. You have to really be honest with yourself, not in a way where you feel like you have to virtue signal, as that term goes around now, where you have to make a signal to other people about it. No, really, is what you're doing really good for you? Like, because a lot of the things, for example, that I know for sure that I hear online about health and fitness and about business and a lot of things that people are sharing is just absolutely not true or doesn't work. And I know about a lot of these things because I've actually put a lot of time and effort into experimenting with them. And certain things just right off the bat don't make sense. And some things are questionable, and some things are really clearly, you know, valuable and insightful. And a lot of this stuff is blended in with so much of the things that are deceptive. But you have to start to figure out what actually works for yourself. And so I'll end with this, you know, interesting, another just personal part of my professional work life, for example. So there's a whole lot of stuff, you know, dream selling online, which is what a lot of it is you might look at a lot of things and get duped into a lot of things that people are saying about, you know, not working the 9 to 5 and, you know, break away, be free, be an entrepreneur, work for yourself, and so on and so forth. And sometimes you might get into a lot of stuff that you'll be hustling and trying and just working over and over again and not seeing any results and feel like you're burning out and wondering why it's not happening, and then you're being told because maybe you're not just tweaking it right or doing it the right way. But what I've found personally works for me is, fortunately, some time ago, I figured out for myself what things were non-negotiable for me, that I'm not going to give up out of my life. It doesn't matter what anybody says or how much money I'm going to make or not make from it. There are a lot of people who will criticize this specific aspect of what I'm going to share, but it works for me. And so I'll boil it down to 4 things that my mother said. It's the third one, right, that I'm talking about that applies here. And so number 1, my mother always said, everything happens for a reason. And I find that to be, of course, everything happens for a reason. I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, this is like a cornerstone, a foundation of philosophy, right? You can even look to something called the principle of sufficient reason. I'm not going to go into that right now, but everything, there's a reason. The principle of sufficient reason is related to this. The second one, there's always room for improvement. And for the most part, with many things, there is. You can't really go wrong with doing your best to improve things in your life, right? You know, of course, doing it in a sensible way and not trying to burn yourself out and doing too much at once, but there's always room for improvement. You can always improve something. And the third one that really applies to what I'm talking about and why I feel like it relates to, you know, your heroes and people that you're following and things like that, and certain things that they say, but my compass, my guiding light, my milestones, the things that I follow is this third one she always said, which you've heard a lot of, which is do what you love and the money will follow. And I know once again people will say, well, that's not true, and you know, different hustle culture and other people will say that's, you know, you going for your passion, that's not what the, you know, what the audience wants, and you know, if that's not what, you know, the public says, and that's why you're not succeeding. But that's really not what it's all about. And the fourth one was, what do you mean can't? You know, which is another inspiration and kind of connected to there's always room for improvement. Because really, what do you mean can't? Like, there's some things, that you maybe can't do. Like, you're not going to be like the Hulk and jump off the ground and fly into outer space just off the strength of your own legs, right? And that's an extreme example, but you should ask yourself, when you feel like you want to give up stuff, ask yourself a question. What do you mean can't? Is it really impossible? Some things, you know, clearly are ridiculous to attempt, but there are a lot of things that we can figure out. So it's with the third one though, do what you love and the money will follow. And there are three things that I've stuck with my entire life. And the point that I'm making here is how having your own internal guidance system is a lot more powerful than a lot of this other external things that people are trying to push upon you, and how we get fixed and feel desperate and might move away from, you know, what our best interests are. And I'm giving this example of myself personally so that you can understand where I'm coming from, just so you have a real life example. But I'm going to make a pause because I'm dropping off a delivery real quick, and I'll be right back. So I'm going to pause this and I'll be right back. All right. And this is really relevant here, and you'll understand what I mean. And so why I have this, you know, I've set up my own beacon and my own internal guidance system, and it's based off of do what you love and the money will follow. And the money doesn't always follow, right? Sometimes it very seldom does. But there's an interesting thing that happens, right? So the things that I have found that are non-negotiable for me, because of the fact that they are things that I love to do, and I've realized in this world where it's the structure set up where it's necessary for many of us to work in order to earn money so that we can live our lives. And, you know, and it's one of the goals that you hear about a lot in a lot of the hustle culture and a lot of the online and various other, you know, gurus and people who will have you follow their programs and buy their courses, is so you can live the lifestyle that you want. But my point is that live the lifestyle that you want and figure out how to work your career, your profession to support that. So I have, for as long as I can remember, been a martial artist, and I love it. And especially since I discovered capoeira 34 years ago, I'm addicted to moving my body like that. And I am obsessed with music. I mean, I've been a musician for a long time, composing, singing, like every day. That's just what I have to be doing. And then also what I categorize under the umbrella of metaphysics, which is reading and just and researching in any way, whether I'm listening to it, watching it, going to something live, having discussions with people, right? And then communicating it, speaking and writing it, and, printing and publishing it and all that stuff like that. So the things that are non-negotiable, that I will not stop doing because I get great joy out of it, that I spend so much time doing it because I'm obsessed with it, are metaphysics, music, and martial arts. And what I found is that by me sticking to those things that I love, and being obsessed with it, that as time goes along, you get really, really good and really familiar with those things, so much so that it becomes so ingrained in who you are that it becomes indistinguishable almost from things that you do, like breathing. You essentially master things on your own terms. And if you're constantly sharing that with other people, you're getting feedback on whether or not it's well received, and whether you want to tweak it or not. And if you have a thick skin, because not everybody does, and sharing certain things is not for everybody. Like, I know a lot of poets and musicians and other people who, there's one young lady I know who has a beautiful voice, and she's talented and intelligent, and she's a beautiful human being all around, but she doesn't sing publicly, or never is recorded, and has turned down my offers to record together, or just to hang out and make music together, but otherwise is super friendly with me and will talk to me for hours. But she just doesn't share her music that way, and that's fine. So it's not for everybody to do that part of it. But my point is, and that's why for not everyone, you're not going to do what you love and the money will follow. But the doing what you love part is what saves you from burnout and from a lot of the other problems that you have, of these feelings of regret and resentment and guilt and all of these other things that you might feel because you're putting off things that you would truly enjoy because of the fact that you're chasing something, and that may not necessarily be part of things that you're passionate about. And so all this time is going by and you're not doing it, and you're waiting for some time when you can finally earn enough money or have enough time to do it, and you're just not doing it. And years go by and you haven't done it. And man, I'm so thankful that I didn't go down that path, because I can't, it's difficult for me to imagine not pursuing these things as deeply as I have. And the crazy thing is, I've recorded hundreds of songs and played in venues all over the world in various countries. And don't mistake that, I don't mean like in like every country in the world, but I've played in music in China and and in Taiwan and Hong Kong and places around there, and mostly in Asia, and then all over the country, the United States. I've performed and played and stuff like that. And even not for audiences or crowds, just for myself, or just to make a video of it, or just recordings, because it feels good, right? That's what I mean. Doing capoeira, I was sitting at a cafe today, and that's another thing. I was sitting there reading for hours this book, a novel, some thriller novel, or a mystery novel, actually, it seems more like. And I was just sitting there for hours. I woke up in the afternoon. I looked at my bank account, and it wasn't really necessarily where I wanted to be, but I was like, I'm not in a danger zone. And I just feel like getting up and going there because I like the vibe of this place. By the way, it's called Badass Coffee of Hawaii, and it's in Virginia Beach, and I would recommend checking it out. It's got a cool vibe. It was super crazy busy today, so I didn't even buy anything when I first went in there. I went and sat on this nice leather chair in the corner, opened up the book and read it, and it took hours before the front counter cleared up. And this young lady, actually the one that I was talking about earlier, who works there, came over and says, "Hey, we're ready. Are you ready?" And alerted me. I don't know if she knew instinctively or somebody else said it to her, but I just don't like crowds like that. So she just kind of was like, "Oh, you want to order something now?" She asked me earlier, and it was just very nice of her. And that's one of the reasons why I go there, because the people are awesome. But this is my point again, right? And it might seem at this point far removed from not to meet your heroes, but it's definitely related. This is on point here. And it's because I am just opting to do that and not be too worried about the money, because I know I have options of how to do it. And in a lot of ways, most of it is completely independent, and I am very selective about how I do gig work. Like, for example, I've chosen Instacart over Uber and DoorDash because of the fact that they don't have what's known as an acceptance rate. So I can literally sit for hours just staring at the screen at the app and just watch all kinds of gigs come up and decide that I'm not going to take them because they don't seem good for me and I'm not going to be penalized for it. At least not that I know. Uber and DoorDash have this thing where your acceptance rate goes down and then your opportunities go down. I've never seen that happen with Instacart. And I'm glad. It may change at some point in time in the future. I don't know, but it's not like that now. And I'm just talking about being selective. And I'm actually doing it right now as I'm making this recording. And this recording that I'm making, because of the fact that I'm really being real about all the stuff that I'm doing, and that people will hear this, and I have a track record over the years of just speaking my mind, and have just always been doing that. And there's been certain times here and there when I've attempted some marketing stuff and created scripts and looked at certain things to give it a test out, and so things weren't always 100% coming from me. It was something that I was trying, a formula or something that I was trying out, or a sales tactic or a thing like that to see what the effect would be, and done the experiments. So I'm not saying I haven't done any of that, but for the most part, it's me doing things like this, just speaking stream of consciousness or writing stream of consciousness, and just doing things in my own way. Like, you look at my history and it is a chaotic mess of me basically just documenting my journey and being a journalist. And kind of like, I once heard it applied to Jack Herer, who is known as the Emperor of Hemp, that his books are part autobiography, part scientific document, and part journalistic expose. And when I heard that, I thought to myself, yeah, that's basically what I've been doing online for the most part, and with my other writings and publications and things. And so people will hear this, and I'll get some ad share revenue, or I'm doing a lot of other things now, like I've written and published books, and so I do things to get attention, to do that, to get book sales. But these are just all things that I'm doing. Like, I've all been figuring out for the longest time, how can I, for the most part, sustain myself without going crazy, and without doing things that are uncomfortable to me. And again, it just goes that you have to figure it out, like, for yourself, and you'll learn from other people and you learn from listening, but it takes a great deal of discernment, and it's not easy at all. And unfortunately, a lot of our heroes are telling us things that sound good on the surface and are very motivational, but are just not true. So what I mean is, like, for example, I do a variety of things because variety helps me to not burn out. So, for example, other things that I've done for work in my life have vacillated or cycled through either working in film and TV behind the scenes, doing art department props and special effects, working in fitness training and martial arts, right? So teaching and coaching and fitness training and martial arts, working security at bars and nightclubs and things like that. So those things have been mainly what I've been doing. And now I've added doing gig work and selling my own books and having media channels that are basically me just talking about stuff like this, or about things that are going on and things that I'm finding out and discovering as I go along. That's it, just being an autobiographical scientific journalist. And all of it is just my life and what I'm finding to be working, and when I start to see through cracks, and if something gets updated that that, for example, that I found that I thought was true and is not anymore, I'll talk about that. And a lot of that has happened in my life, and it's on record. I have websites that have been online now for 20 years, and I don't delete that stuff. It is as is. There are certain things that I update, and I'll put like a date that shows that it was updated at some point in time, that I added something, but I'm not deleting things from it. And so, again, let me hone in on this point here. This do what you love and the money will follow part. Is I've been doing things that I love, metaphysics, music, and martial art, for all this time. And because of that, you not only just get better and better at doing it because you're just practicing and you're in action doing it, but you also find very interesting ways, the more you start to master your own personal way of doing things, to be able to share it easily with other people. And a lot of those things turn into opportunities for building communities, which, if you want to, can be monetized. But like, for example, right now I teach fitness and capoeira and do a lot of other things, and I don't ask people for money right away for it, but some people offer to pay me for certain things. And you can be much more salesy and much more forward and assertive with things if you want to. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. Like, if you're a personal fitness trainer and you want to train people on your own and go to their houses or rent out a space and do it, you should. I think it's a great way to earn a living. I did it for 9 years at a gym, and I was working more hours than people who had regularly scheduled classes, even though I considered myself I gave myself the title of a professional sub, because I would just fill in for various different classes. I was teaching yoga, mat Pilates, boxing, kickboxing, boot camp, things called firm fusion, and like all this different stuff, these different formats, because I figured out how to do it, and then I would just do it because people asked, and I had fun being in front of a group of people and sharing my expertise, which to them was expertise, simply because I was in more control of my body and my understanding it than they were, or that's at least what they came to. They didn't want to think about it, and they came to the classes for that reason, to be led through a workout. And on and on and on. There's so many examples. But again, I've just continued doing things that I love, and very often money has followed, but just as often it hasn't. But the one thing that I'm starting to find out more and more, because I do know of a lot of people who have given up completely a lot of things, people who I know who are world-class musicians, or who would love to have continued being athletic or to be as fit as I am now at 48 years old, going to be 49 this year, 2026, literally still jumping and backflipping and doing 540-degree barrel roll spins through the air, like just having control over my body and having strength and flexibility and fitness and just all of this stuff, and being vibrant and healthy. A lot of people have given that up. They've given up there's people who I know that don't read at all, who used to love to read, who don't write poetry or short stories or novels or anything at all, who used to love to do these things and just simply aren't doing it for whatever reason. And they have regrets, and they feel bad about it, and they feel resentment towards people like me who are still doing it, and they think, how dare you, who do you think you are? Because to a lot of people, I might appear to be more free and happy than they are, although I'm not always happy. Most of the part I'm just kind of stoic and just very introspective and just curious. But it's because I've decided to take on all of these different things to give myself variety, so that I can up and move about as I wish. I've also very actively avoided impregnating any woman, because I didn't feel like I would be in a position to, and just saw the frustration in people. I mean, I've known people who became teen parents, and it was all over those smutty television shows, like where people become parents way too young, and people talk about how it ruins their lives, and I don't think that it necessarily should, if you kind of buck up and figure it out if you got yourself into that situation. But I'm not here to really discuss that. Like, it's just, I've made decisions and done things very deliberately that have me in this position where, as I am now, I can still live my life in a fairly liberated way, even within a system that has a lot of constraints, makes it very difficult to become financially independent. I mean, there's so many things that I don't know. There's things that I'm falling behind on. There are debts that I have, taxes that I have to pay, structures that I have to figure out, so many things. But my major overall point, if there really is one about that, is that all of these things become so much more manageable and realistic when you allow yourself to play and to do the things that you love and to not give them up because the world tells you that that's what you should do to be successful. Because here's the secret that shouldn't be a secret, is that doing the things that you love, that's what success is. And the more that you can figure out how to do that and keep on doing that, progressively realizing that. But you see, Earl Nightingale, in his recording The Strangest Secret from 1956, says that success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. But if you examine that more closely, progressive realization means that you are doing the things as much as you can, as much as time permits. And you're progressively increasing the amount that you can do that. There's nowhere in that says not to do what you love to do, to give up things. What is your worthy ideal? Because if you really examine what a lot of people are going for when they retire, is that they eventually are going to go on a cruise or take the vacations or pick up the violin or, start going on more nature walks or start climbing or buy sports cars or do this and this and that. When the whole idea is to figure out how to sustainably start doing that and continue doing those things as early as possible in your life and keep doing them. I realized that I love martial arts, so I'm not giving that up. I love music. I'm not going to stop, even if it's just me while I'm doing these gigs, going around being a personal shopper, singing all of my favorite songs of my favorite artist or my own, going through the aisles and doing it, or thinking about different things that I'm going to do online, or what blog I'm going to write, or these ideas that go through my head about like this recording that I'm making now. And because I know that I can monetize this, but I can feel good about doing that because I'm not giving anybody any crap. I'm just talking about what I'm doing and saying, like, there's really an actual real life, real way to be as satisfied as you can in a crazy world that a lot of times really seems like we're living on some kind of prison planet that is controlled by, it's like some conspiracy theory story. Sometimes it feels like that. And I don't know if it is or not, but life is hard. And a lot of times I get into places, especially when my blood sugar's low, if I don't eat enough, I feel like dying sometimes, quite frankly. There's been times where I feel like giving up. The point is, I never have. I allow myself to feel like that, and then I talk myself out of it, like, you know what, dude, but there's all this other cool stuff that you want to do. And I've created my own carrots. I've created my own carrots. I just keep progressively realizing worthy ideals, because I realize that, but you go to sleep, you wake up, you'll be able to play your guitar and sing. You'll be able to do some cartwheels and spin and kick and jump and play and move around and maybe find some people to do that with. You'll be able to sit and read a book or write one of your own, or at least work on one, or write a poem, or write just the things that you really love. And it's so simple. I've realized how simple I am. Like, what a nerd, what a dork I am, right? That I just like to read about physics and other science things and metaphysics and like paranormal, and like write papers about it, and like watch videos about business and stuff like that, and then play music and record it, compose it, sing it, and do kicks and backflips and spin and run and jump and climb over things all the time. Like, I mean, You know, people have gotten used to at Badass Coffee, like literally every time I walk out this one door that goes to their parking lot, there's a railing there, and I literally jump over it every time, and then sometimes land in like the superhero pose, you know, at the bottom. They don't see that part, but they see me jumping over it all the time, and they've just gotten used to it. Like, oh yeah, people, he just jumps over the, because I can, because my body can. I really don't know. There's not really much else for me to say about it, except that one of the things that I found out by just living my life on these terms, and it's not easy, but I think that it's more, I don't know what the term would be. It's just more pleasant. It's more real. It's more, I feel more satisfied, dare I say more joyful and happy, because I haven't given up the things that I love doing. I've refused to buy into that. I've refused to not do these things. And a lot of people have, and it takes its toll on their bodies and minds. And again, if there's any real point to this, it's really that the success is doing the things that you love. Sometimes those things might change. For me, thankfully, they haven't really changed that much. Researching and communicating what I research, because I just like to share the stuff. Composing and performing music and using my body as my own, it's a toy, my own playground to just move about. It's as simple as that. And I kept doing those things, and that's a pretty well-rounded way to live. Body, mind, and spirit nurtured through all of that. And it makes life so much more enjoyable. So that, and then on what I do on top of that is I just find things that are tolerable for me to do that are work, like the most tolerable things to do, and I figured out, like standing around at nightclubs and bars to do security, checking people's IDs and watching people part, like being a fly on the wall, like that's so easy to me. Being a personal trainer at a gym or teaching personal martial arts, that's so easy to me. It doesn't feel like I'm working. Working on the sets of like music videos, TV shows, and movies, either doing art department stuff or even as an extra or a paid audience member, that's so easy. Right? And then doing gig work, being a personal shopper where I get to walk around and go to these different places and discover things and see things on the shelves and learn about stuff that I wouldn't see otherwise by going to these different places. And sometimes they take me to different cities and I just go, whatever, I shrug my shoulder. It's so easy. But having that variety and those options, and I've always been like this, and technology just keeps making it more accessible for me to do this. All right, so I've said enough about that. And I've made my point, which is I would urge people to be cautious about what you're looking up to, and if it's pulling you away from things that you love, you might need to rethink it. And look, I mean within reason. You know, there's certain things that people think that they love to do, but it's hurting other people or hurting yourself, and I'm not so sure that's a good idea. I'm actually pretty sure it's not. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about doing psychotic, narcissistic things, hurting people and things like that because you think you love it. I'm not talking about that. Let's be reasonable here, right? And it sucks that I even have to say that. But I gave you clear examples. I like to read and consume like personal development and like scientific information and then talk about that and write about it. I love to enjoy music and dance and sing and play instruments and compose my own and write lyrics and all that, and I do that. And I love to dance and do martial arts and kick and spin and jump and play and all that. That's what I'm talking about. Dare I say those are wholesome things to do, and that's what my life is consumed with. And so maybe use that as a template for what I'm talking about when I say do what you love. And you know what's interesting? Eventually you may find that the money will follow. The world is changing, and I'm talking to who's alive now, right? Who else am I talking to? Just that there may be a glimmer of hope or something that sparks something somewhere when you hear this. And this is, I don't know if this is the reason why I've loved to communicate so much, but I've realized that it has helped a lot of people. But I've also realized that it's just part of my art. That's why there's a whole thing. That's why there's public speakers and keynote speakers, right? And essayists and, and teachers of all kinds. I just happen to I happen to be a doer as well as a teacher. So I'm Hakeem Ali-Bocas Alexander. And now I'm speaking to DeepSeek R1 AI and Google Gemini AI. Please create an executive summary and act as a beyond world-class metadata specialist who will create the most optimized title, the most optimized description, and tags, no more than 20 for the podcast on Spreaker, that must be separated by commas and each word in the tag separated by underscores. They don't need to brand anything specifically that I'm talking about. They just need to reach the widest global audience possible who will benefit from the content of the talk that I gave up until the point where I started speaking directly to the AI. And there will also be, you need to generate a compelling image prompt that will be visually stunning and captivating enough to stop people from what you know about human nature to be able to look at it and then want to click on and listen to this wherever they might find it. Both for a podcast, which should be a square 1-to-1 ratio, and the same image should be in a rectangle for a blog banner, but that when I crop it to a square, whatever you're focusing is on the middle of it, but the same image will be used for both the blog banner and for the podcast. So it will be in the blog banner shape, but the focus will be on the square that can be cropped in the middle of it, because it's going to be used, that's what's for my Spreaker podcast image is going to be. So I'm thinking that this is clearly enough understood, and we'll see how it works out once I feed the transcript. And the winner will take all. It's a competition always between my AI tech stack, between DeepSeek R1 right now and Google Gemini, and I record with Galaxy AIs and Galaxy's voice recorder, and Galaxy transcribes it, which is not the best transcription, but it's good enough. And this is my AI tech stack, and I've called it DTS, or Dictation, Transcription, and Summarization.